Hey, today in our membership group, we discussed The Artist Way. We started this book review. If you haven't read this, if you haven't gotten this, I suggest that you get it. I was impressed. I was thinking, oh, I'm not much of a reader, but I knew other people were interested in it, and I thought, well, we can do that because others are interested in it. But I was thrilled with what the first chapter covered in here. And we talked about it. We talked about the shadow artist, meaning that it's the individual who always sees they admire other people and their art, or support other people's work and their art, but they don't really see themselves as doing it, but they have this desire inside themselves, so they'll support somebody else and do it, and they're called shadow artists. And I'd never heard that before, and I thought, well, that's interesting. And it usually is created because somewhere in their life they were given a perception that either they can't make money at it, or that's really not a profession to go into. It's more of a hobby, and so therefore then they're told these sayings that they think that they really can't do that. Now, whether it be actually creating art, writing, doing a musical instrument, anything that's artistic, they become discouraged on it. So then, therefore, they become very supportive of others that do it. And I thought, that's really interesting. She goes into this particular chapter, she talks about protecting the artist child within. And we always need to think about that there is an artist child within us. And how would we protect that child? And realize that just like any child that's learning to walk, and that they've got to learn to crawl first, and then they'll stammer a little bit as they start taking their first steps, and then and it's just a progression, and that's how we need to treat our art. And I thought, I love that. That's true. That we can become very judging and abusive over ourselves and what we tell ourselves about our art, and to become aware of that and stop that criticizing and treat ourselves, that artistic child, with care and encouragement. Encouragement, that is the key. No matter what, encouragement always needs to be there. She goes on to talk about in here, um, we must be willing to make bad art, and don't go for perfection. Go for just participating in it, and striving for something, learning new things, but stop seeking this perfection. Um, I loved, and I shared this with her. I read this out of the book. I'm going to read it again here. It says, and this is a quote: remember that in order to recover as an artist, you must be willing to be a bad artist. Give yourself permission to be a beginner. By being willing to be a bad artist, you have a chance to be an artist, and perhaps over time, a very good one. And then she says, when I make this point in teaching, I am always met by instant defensive hostility. And then she quotes, but do you know how old I will be by the time I learn to really play the piano, art, paint, write, or a decent play? Yes, she says back to them, the same age you will be if you don't. So let's start. And in my book, as I underlined that, I put a LOL on it, laugh out loud, because isn't that true? Sometimes I've found myself thinking, I really want to do that. Oh my gosh, by the time I really do that, I'll be, don't just put that away, throw that away. She goes on to talk about your enemy within and those core negative beliefs. And as members of my Art Sisters, I have provided for you a section in here called Creative Reminders. And the Creative Reminders help to offset these negative beliefs that our mind wants to pop up and say. And she talks about how she gives an example of how you can change these, and it is by positive affirmations, coming back to change that belief that you have inside, that maybe your work isn't as good, or it's bad, or I can't I spend too much money doing this, or whatever it is, those negative thoughts, or I'm not really an artist, I just pretend like I am, or whatever. all the negatives, and they always come when we start to put a positive in there. When we start to say, wow, I did really good at that. Well, then that negative thought will pop in and go, did you really? Well, look at that line, or look at those colors. Or, gee, don't you think that should have been better? And it starts chipping away at when we just, as a child gave ourselves permission to celebrate. It just starts chipping away at that. And she said, we need to stop that, and we need to become a recovering artist. I love that. Um, we need to unplug from those negative thoughts. And if you're not using the creative reminders, just go into our group and click on that little section. You'll find it up there. I've got it in two places. I've actually got it. But the easiest way to get to it is go to the little art village. Up at the top is a greenhouse, because I feel like every good thing we're putting in our mind, we are growing, and we need to be focused on nourishing and growing good thoughts. All right. And so that's in the greenhouse, and you can click into that, put your password in, and go right in. And I've given you an example. I explain very simply how to use them. And you could pull out some thoughts that I've already pre-written in there. And she says these negative thoughts are just stalling techniques. They're just these stalling techniques to keep us from getting where we really want to desire, but we don't think that we belong. Or we've created this belief that it's really not for us. It's somebody else's that gets all this, that's capable and able to do these things. She talks about going on a timeline. I've done this with my clients when I was doing the positive psychology years ago, and I was working as a coach and dealing with that. You go on a timeline, and this timeline is basically, it's from the beginning of your time, you as a little one, up to where you are now, and maybe how you perceive yourself in the future. But this timeline, you go back on the timeline and you just think, where did that thought originate from? Who did I hear this from? Where, when did I decide that this was truth? And sometimes you won't remember, sometimes it won't come to your mind, but there will be many times when it does come to your mind, and you think to yourself, oh, that was because I heard a teacher say to me, blah, 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 blah. And they probably meant nothing by it, or maybe they did, I don't know. Or maybe a friend, or maybe it was someone within your family, some kind of a criticism or some type of good advice, and it created this perception for you. So go back, acknowledge where it is. And she says in here, it's important to grieve over those things a little bit, to really understand that, yeah, that did bother me. That did bring it to the light, because she said too many times with situations, we, push it down, or, that's not really that important. We push it back, but it's back there, and it's just causing havoc in our mind. This little tiny negative voice is running around like a unruly child going, no, and throwing temper tantrums. Do you like to hear children throw temper tantrums? I don't. I don't like to hear it. I don't like to hear the yelling and the screaming and the crying and the whatever that goes on. All right? And that's what that little negative voice is doing in our head, is throwing a temper tantrum, and we're not aware of it, but we are paying attention to it, even though we don't think we are, and we're following. It's like we're giving in, going, oh, okay, just stop talking. Okay, I believe you. And we go with it. So she talks about that. Those creative reminders that I've given you, those statements in there, can be very helpful to alter, to change, to redirect your thinking. And it's not just about art, it's about everything that goes on in the day that maybe triggers you into feeling a negative way, or feeling unsatisfied, feeling distraught, any of those negative feelings. She calls it monsters, the little monsters in our mind. And she says, more monsters will come to you as you work through your recovery. It also is necessary to acknowledge creative injuries and grieve them. Otherwise, they become creative scar tissue and block your growth. Wow. I never thought about it that way. Creative scar tissue that blocks your growth. So anyway, I just wanted to bring this up. If you have never read this, like I hadn't, I've always heard it's good. There is some nuggets, some jewels in here that I think we'll find uplifting and motivating. And if you are a member of my Art Sisters and you're in our membership, then go to that section. If you don't understand or if it's confusing, contact me. Put a little message in our group. Say, I don't understand. We can do a class on this. We can do whatever. Utilize it, because that is one of the benefits that you have as a member of my art group. All right, y'all. This is Kathy Freeman with Kathy Freeman Art. Have a great day.